right, we're back live on YouTube.
David says he still can't hear. Regent Brinkley, can you hear us?
Oh, what about you? Can you hear us?
Yes, it's a lot better than what it was.
We have everybody then except Regent Brinkley.
I can hear you.
Texting him, it's a him problem.
Try one more time. Maybe it might be user error on that. Is that?
Yes.
If this one is good,
Okay, it says he hears.
All right.
And there we go. Well, let the record show that there are 4 participating by Zoom who've all acknowledged that they are in fact on the record with the rest of us. And 5 present in person. So, Madam Secretary,
We have 9 Regents present representing the Board of Control.
very good. Our first item of business on the special budget meeting agenda is finance and budget item number 1, approval of 2023-24 operating budget. And I will refer that matter to Agent Brody, Regent Brody.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You're requested to approve the 2023-24 operating budget. I'd like to call on Ms. Susan Orr, Executive Vice President, Strategy, Operations, and Finance, to enlighten us.
Okay, thank you, Roy. And I'm going to try and keep this as concise as we can. I know we had a thorough presentation at the May meeting, and so we'll get started. So just a reminder from the meeting in May, this is our budget summary for fiscal year 24. So this is what you'll be taking action on today. So the bottom line of our budget now is about $390 million, and that's a $6.5 million increase over the prior year, or a 2% increase. So I think the most important item to take from this is, as I suspected at the May meeting, there are no changes to the budget since what you saw in May. So, any questions? Okay. So again, as a reminder, these are the big recommendations and items that are included in the budget for your approval today. The first would be that given the limited amount of discretionary funds that we have, the budget office will continue, as we did in the current year, evaluate our fixed cost increases in real time, and looking at year-over-year budget increases and covering those, which are primarily inflationary in nature, with one-time funds rather than putting permanent. I think we're all hopeful, just like we are in our personal budget, that inflation will at some point cool down, and so that we won't have to put permanent funds in to cover those increases. I think the big item for campus is that we did approve a 2% salary pool for faculty and staff, which will be distributed in January of 24, and it will be at the guidance of the a recommendation from the BEC into senior leadership, and then we'll start work on what that would look like later in the summer, probably August, once faculty return to campus. And then again, they will make that recommendation into senior leadership, and then we'll make a decision. You'll not need to approve that. You're just part of the budget. You're approving the 2% salary. And then BEC, as a reminder, that's the Budget Executive Committee, did send a list of recommended items for us to consider. again, with the limited amount of funds that we have, we've made a commitment to the DEC that we will look to a strategic initiative fund and cover some of the higher priority items. And turning to the revenue side of the budget, so you will see how the revenue breaks down. And again, a reminder that we are a tuition dependent school, as most institutions are. We're no different than most. 46% of our budget is made up of tuition and fees. And next would be our state appropriation at 83.4 million. And you'll see the other items, which are of course much smaller part of our budget. So this is an important slide because this, of course, as I talked about us being a tuition dependent school, these are the numbers that, again, you're approving as part of the budget. The enrollment numbers, which makes up our revenue budget for the tuition and fees. So what we're projecting, we do budget on FTE, that's full-time equivalent, and working with Vice President Ethan Logan and his group, we have estimated the projected FTE enrollment for next year at basically 13,500. But as a reminder, because people forget that, that is full-time equivalent. So we don't budget based on, you know, we have a high school student coming and taking a course, or we have faculty or staff taking a course. So, but as a reminder, our total head count is approaching for campus about 17,000. So I just wanted that to be clear delineation. Another important number that you're approving as part of this is the first year freshman class. And again, what we're the budget is based on is a freshman class of 2,832, which right now all indications are that we will make that budget. And again, that is a projected increase over the prior year. And then the reason why this specially called meeting is early in June this year is that once the board takes action on the tuition increases today, those will go to the CPE for final approval, and their meeting is in a couple of weeks. So the CPE recommended a 5% tuition cap for 2 years, not to exceed 3% in any of those 2 years. So we are recommending a 3% tuition increase. Again, an important item included in the budget that you're approving is the tuition in mandatory fee schedule. And I want to make clear, this is mandatory fees. So those are fees for all students across all. And so you'll see that you'll see the increase in the resident undergrad, military resident, we're holding flat. And for basically recruiting purposes, and international is flat, and you'll see the tuition incentive program. So a lot of folks ask me what the tuition incentive program means. So this is just a note to remind you. These are students who are residents of other selected states across the United States. And the states are selected to strategically align with our student recruiting efforts. Graduate, you see where they are flat from prior year, so no changes there. So the Kentucky multi-state educator, those are students that hold a current educator license issued by the Departments of Education in Kentucky and the bordering states. I believe Corinne and Bud, we started that meeting last year. Was that last year? 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Okay. These are some of your other rates which are all being held flat. The doctorate of education leadership and the doctorate of psychology, and these are all per credit hour rates. The doctor of nurse practitioner, again, they're being held flat, and the doctorate of physical therapy. Distance learning, they are all flat except for one, which is the WKU on-demand undergraduate. And there's a subtle delineation between on-demand and other online learning. So your on-demand are online courses that are their schedules do not align exactly with our typical traditional semesters. And then dual credits are your high school students. And as a reminder from what you approved several meetings ago, the short-term investment strategy, I think that's really exciting for our campus. It's generating an additional $3 million towards this operating budget that had not been budgeted in the past. And the policy, just to remind you once again, achieves principal protection, which is really important, liquidity and the investment earnings. So that's the additional $3 million that we could put in the budget. Thought that little picture shows the money growing.
Is that the money tree? Susan has to water that.
So on the expenditure side, I think the most noteworthy is the point that while we're a tuition dependent school on the revenue side, we are certainly an employee dependent on the expenditure side. So our faculty and staff make up about 48% of the budget. And before we take any questions or discussion, I'd just like to say that a few steps that remain before we roll into July 1 and the new budget takes in effect is that, again, the last thing will be the approval by the CPE of the tuition rates. So once action is taken today, those will be sent up to Frankfurt for the CPE to take action on. And again, I don't want to neglect by saying a huge thanks to Ronaldo and Brian Denny. Brian is our executive director of the budget, and Ronaldo is our AVP for finance and budget. So I'm ready to take questions or discussion.
Susan, I just want to thank you and your folks that have worked so hard on this and have kept us fully informed about it. I've appreciated the briefings, the individual briefings that we call for, and the community briefings otherwise to fully inform us about this budget prior to today. I acknowledge that and want to thank you. Appreciate that.
And again, I also want to say, having thanked Ronaldo and Brian, it's really a team effort. It's a campus effort working with Bud and the president and the deans and vice presidents. We couldn't have gotten it done without everybody working together. So. Yeah, Melissa.
The mandatory student fees per semester, are they for full-time students only, or how are they?
They're prorated by, so full-time would get the full amount, and then it would be prorated down based on how many hours a person is taking.
Sorry, I've got a few questions.
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time on the expenditures side of this, which we've got more recently. My first question goes to page 47 in the university-wide part of the budget, where there is a adjustment strategy of $5.4 million. And just curious, when you're talking about BEC, we'll be considering budget priorities for higher priority items later. We're looking at
What page was that?
page 47.
Okay.
Just curious as to what the plan is there, what we're looking at, and if there is going to be any money for these BEC higher priority items.
Well, that would be looking at the strategic investment fund. That would be the money that really is controlled by the president and provost. Primarily goes to academic initiatives. I mean, there's been a few items on the administration side, but I think it's fair to say most all of it goes to academic type of initiatives. So that's the money that would be used for that.
For the BEC stuff.
Yeah,
So
and we really have not made any decisions how that would be distributed at this point.
okay, so on the BEC side, the $5.4 million adjustment strategies is at this point no.
So I think that one of the things that we look to leadership to do, meaning academic deans, provost office, and other VPs, is being diligent with their expenditures, right? And so we know there is a way to control the expense side of the ledger and the revenue side of the ledger. deans have to manage their budgets to the number that they have, not the number that they want to spend. So I think as you look over the course of the year, what you're going to see, and Ronaldo will pay attention to this, is what is the spend rate, right? And if your budget number is here and your spend rate is here, then we're out of whack. So I think it requires, as you go through the year, being disciplined and conservative about spend.
So one thing that I've also done, since this is our second round, and as we adopted this, we moved to this, we talked about moving money into strategic initiatives. So I did some analysis where I've looked at what we've done over time, comparing this budget with pre-round and looking at how things have changed and reflecting back on the criticism and concerns that I hear from our campus community. So just to give you some thoughts on that, athletics has gone up 3%. The president's office 0.01% since we ended, no change. The enrollment budget declined. The student experience budget stayed flat. David's budget, PBS and all that is basically flat. But what concerns me as I look through this is I go through and I grabbed all the faculty salaries from the department lines across the entire campus. I know I missed some, so it's a sample, but I try to be consistent in what I grabbed. And there is a 13.5% decline in this since RAMP has gone into place. That's $10 million decline in the faculty staff and faculty support in academic affairs. At the same time, there is an 82.6% increase in the dean's line. So deans support dean's office, their office staff, and whatever is going into that line has gone up $5 million during that time. So $10 million from faculty lines down and $5 million increase in the dean's lines during that time. At the same time, the number of faculties declined, students is declined. I'm wondering what accountability do we have under the RAND model for how the deans are spending this almost double the amount of money that they're getting? Because what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is accusations that there's empire building going on, that they now have much more staff. They have built, one college calls it a moat, another college calls it a bunker, where they're not talking with faculty. We have a culture of exclusion of the differences in the deans. Now we are giving them the budget to build that up. So I'm curious about what we look to see long term here.
Yeah, I think that what you see in the salary side, and I certainly will turn to the provost to answer some of this. When you look at what we accomplished with voluntary separation program, we did what we wanted to do. And it was not inexpensive, but it did bring down that number. So that's part of it. I know there are concerns around faculty departure. But the reality is, for the past 2 years, our faculty departure has been less than departure rates in the previous decade, except for the visa year. We've managed to do, since I arrived, over 10% plus in salary increases. And so I think that what you see is a shifting. But I will say, to your credit, and I will look at my decanal colleagues, that there should not be empire building. But there may have been understaffing in some of those areas. And if my charge to them is recruit and retain students, and they did not have the ability to be able to do that, particularly at the graduate level, then they're going to need to bulk that up a little bit. So I think that what you're seeing is a natural shift in power and expenditure power. I mean, the dollars are important. The decisions that deans make are around faculty and how many faculty I need in my college as a dean, what's the staffing I need in the office. And so I will say it's a good question, and provosts and deans, we will talk through that a little bit.
Well, we talked through it a lot, right? I mean, that's what we spend our time looking at, is how do we use the budget efficiently to allow us to be able to grow? Because if we don't grow because we're a tuition-driven institution, we will not have any money into the future. So I want to start with one thing. If you look at and you look at the decline of students, now faculty and administrators, they've all been kind of equal. So what we've gone through is a real adjustment of the number of people on this campus. So administrators are like 19%, somewhere between 17 and 19. Students are down somewhere in that value, and so are faculty. So there has been a decline in all people, not just kids. The other thing is that I think what you see is staff, right? Staff when I walked in the door, there was almost no staff that existed in colleges. We had lost a significant number of staff when we did the VSIT, which was something like 60 to 65 people. And what we had already been lean up to that point. And what we've done over the last few years in hopes of bringing more students in and in hopes of being more effective with helping the faculty is to rebuild that group in a way that makes sense. And in a large number of cases, as we rebuild that group, we have to realize that we have asked them to do much more. And I think the other part of that increase has come because of increases in their salary. Example being, I will say, is the budget analysis people in the colleges who were not making very much, but were now asked to, as you said, to handle huge amounts in a huge job. And in doing so, there was a feeling that we needed to compensate them some because there was a huge learning curve that had to go on. So those are the kinds of things that have happened. And I think some of it has gone to mental health in some colleges, others it's gone to recruitment in some colleges. It's all been strategically put in there so that down the line, we have growth in the enrollment that occurs here so that we can continue to grow, and which I think is the only way we can go at this point.
I just want to make sure that we, as we go through this process and we had this decentralization of some things of marketing, of recruiting and other things and expected growth in the dean's areas to take that up. And one area that is completely flat and actually declined is graduate office again. And I've heard from some people that we're looking for increases in graduate students over the next few years as we have a decline in other populations. But yet I look at that office and I don't see any growth there. So I'm expecting, that there would be some things in the dean's offices. So
I will say that we have filled every job that's been asked of us to fill in the graduates. So right now, everything that's been asked, and we are in the process of filling a couple more as we speak right now. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about efficiency. I spend a lot of time talking about growth. I spend a lot of time thinking with the deans about what do we strategically put in so that in the future, what we will have is a viable institution that can move forward.
Well, and I also, so the notion that deans don't want to engage with faculty, that's antithetical to being a dean. And so I wish, I ask y'all to talk a little bit about how it is you do engage your faculty, because I think that's not what deans do. Current.
Yeah, I'm happy to, specifically to the budget. So, and I'll just speak from my college, but I know that there are similar systems within the other colleges. So we use a multimodal approach to engaging faculty around ways in which we can support their work and our students to be successful. A lot of those ways are tied to dollars. And so we're constantly asking, what do you need? We've been looking at and increasing slowly as we can the professional development dollars that faculty have access to within the college to meet the scholarly expectations within their roles. And of course, they're engaging students in that as well. So you'll see some student travel dollars going up simultaneous to increased engagement with the faculty. We use surveys as well. So we'll send out an informal survey to ask, what do you need? What are your plans for this year? We were able to do a call for renewal for lab materials this year as well. And then we take all of that information and it's a year-long process, right? This is a continual conversation. We all visit the departments at least once a year, probably once a semester. Most colleges, I would suspect. And then we hold college-wide budget meetings where we articulate exactly what the budget was that was approved, how we're spending those current dollars, what we plan on spending those current dollars for next year. Those are not mandatory meetings. Faculty have to choose to come to those meetings. We try to hold them at times where classes are not necessarily engaged so that more faculty can come. And then all of our budgets, I think at this point, are posted somewhere in our colleges. I know mine is posted on my wall in my office. A lot of us have porch sits or open office hours where faculty can actually come in and ask questions about the budget. I'll be honest, faculty don't ask a ton of questions about the budget, but they do come to the sessions. And they've learned about the ramp model. They've learned about recruiting within the context of the ramp model. And to Susan's point earlier, how important tuition is to this institution. And so I think all of us have embraced that as a culture. So it's hard to say, here's the X, Y, and Z of what we do. It's actually what we do every day. And so I'm pretty excited about our budget within our college, as it does reflect what our faculty need to do in order to meet the mission of their programs. So it's been a good year, I think, from that conversation, from that perspective.
So think about what you just heard. For those of you who've been around for a while, you just heard a dean talking about how she is engaging her faculty around issues of budget, where they need to invest, how to be strategic, where do they deploy resources, how do you meet faculty needs, how do you support students, and transparency around how many dollars they have to do it. It used to be 3 people in a room deciding where the money was spent. And we as an institution over 6 years have now devolved that to the college level, closer to faculty, where deans work hand in glove with faculty to support their students, to graduate them. That is a complete 180. And so I appreciate, I think it's a great question. But I think what it illustrates is that we now have deans who aren't just pointing fingers at me saying, well, why did you cut my budget? They know they have a budget to grow and they'll be rewarded for that. And we have more work to do. Subvention is a challenge. But I think that this is real progress and growth for the institution. And I thank the deans. I know this has been challenging. I know it's been a tremendous learning curve, a heavy lift. And I'm sorry, our budget officers 7 years ago were not budget officers. They were administrative assistants who had things dropped on them. We now have a team of growing budget officers who have technical skill, the ability to manage resources. And I think that is, again, a testament to the work that our deans and academic affairs have done. And then kudos also to students. But it's a great question.
So to continue on that, with
Yeah.
the deans, the academically, the average tenure of the dean is 4 years. I've been here 17 years and I'm about to start my 8th dean. I mean, 17, it'll be my 18, maybe 17, who knows who will hire. Yet, one of the things that we consistently hear, and again, I'm bringing some things that I've been asked to bring by people on campus, please understand that. The budget executive has 5 deans and 2 department chairs, and department chairs serve at the whim of the dean, and 3 faculty. And when we ask, why do we not have more faculty representation on the budget executive committee? We're told, well, because faculty have a short-term interest. All they want is a raise. Faculty are here, believe in the spirit, or long-term invested in WKU. There's a reason why we get tenure. So when the dean comes in and has some new whim, some new thing, and it's short-term, they can't just fire everybody and then change it and get fired themselves. We are the ones invested in maintaining the curriculum. We're the ones invested in WKU. So
That's not why. I'm gonna tell you, that's not why. And if somebody told you that, they were wrong.
I don't remember that ever being.
I don't either. So it's not why. And I'm gonna tell you why. There are 3 faculty. Domains of expertise. Responsibility for managing the budget, setting the dollars, rests with the administration and with deans. Not with faculty. We've created transparency for faculty. We've created the ability to have input for faculty. We've created transparency and really deep engagement around a budget that was never transparent before. But we're not going to have a budget that is controlled by faculty. It's not their domain of expertise. It's not their responsibility. Do we want to share it? Absolutely, which we've done over and over and over again. The amount of time that our deans and the provost and Susan play with answering questions. I mean, it is an open book. It's an open book. There are no, it's all right here. And I get concerned about this narrative around faculty aren't included. That's nonsense. Faculty are deeply included, deeply. And they're not going to have the overwhelming number to be able to vote for whatever they want, though, because it's not within their domain of expertise. Faculty need to worry about the curriculum, right? And teaching. That's where faculty need to spend their time. And I appreciate our deans and what they've done in terms of learning the budget. I appreciate the provost having an open door around budget. I appreciate Susan taking every call and sitting down with you all. But the faculty who say they want to have the majority vote on the BEC, no. There you go, there's the answer. Doesn't have anything to do with length of tenure, doesn't have anything, it's not in their domain of expertise. And that's really important. I'm passionate about that. As a faculty member, I'm passionate about that. There's a reason for this. And it has nothing to do with tenure. Length of tenure. Or tenure.
Any further questions? Anybody?
Go!
I've got a question. I'm sorry that I couldn't join you guys in person. Just started up here in DC, but thank you, Susan, and your team for your hard work on the budget. I have received concerns regarding the tuition increase from students, of course. Can you expand on how financial aid has increased with this budget? I just want to make sure that we are paying attention that students are facing inflation just as the university is.
So, Colin, this budget, financial aid, institutional aid has increased $5 million. So that's a pretty significant increase. And this is the last year of that major increase in financial aid, because all of the cohorts would have worked through the first class of the new financial aid are now seniors in this budget. So I don't know, Ronaldo or Brian, do you all know how much? Can you all tell me how much financial aid has increased over the last 4 years?
Yeah, the last 4 years, it's been close to 20 million that financial aid has gone up. If you compare that to the tuition, how much tuition has gone up, it has exceeded that.
Far exceeded it.
It's not right.
Thanks.
And I'll chime in. I think that it's important that is an intentional discount strategy focused on yield. And we continue to monitor and think about how those scarce resources are deployed and how effective is that. You know, we're going through the 4th year of the model now, and we're doing a deep dive over the next couple of weeks to think about how it is that's worked and what other tweaks we might make. If that's number one. Number two, while I appreciate the tuition increase of 3% compared to inflation, it is a moderate increase. Number one. Number two, we've been very moderate over the past 6 years, having average increases of about 2%, well under inflation. And the other reason the tuition increase is necessary is because we want to be able to continue to be able to give raises. And so I'm also proud that for the 3rd year in a row, we have a 2% raise pool. Even with COVID, we managed not to reduce salaries. And again, I'll say that other number that during the past 6 years, we've managed to have salary increases of 10% plus. Board has a question.
Yes, I too am like Cole. I wish I could be there. I wanted to comment on I guess the last part of the discussion. And I appreciate Shane's comments and the direction he's coming from and the points that he's made. And that I feel like Dr. Cavoni and the leadership have responded and have always taken that into consideration. As you all know, I'm going off, but I will tell you when I came on, I was actually really surprised at the lack of transparency and information about the budgeting and about the finances, not just with the faculty or the staff, but also I think across the college and the university. So I felt like when Dr. Cavoni said, let's put in the ramp system, like, wow, this is going to be interesting to watch and see and how it evolves. But it's hard for me to imagine that anybody that was there 6 years ago to where we are today can say that they don't have more access to more information and knowledge about what's going on. And again, that's sort of how you can, there's no other way to compare it because it was a new system that we put in. And so in my mind, when I look at where we are today, we're in such a better place, and that ramp has achieved what we were hoping that it would. Now, what happens is it's going to open up another set of issues, and that's okay. That's a good thing because we grow through that process. but it has achieved in my mind as a region what it was designed to do. It's created transparency. It has created a true process for input. It has created an opportunity to move the decision-making down closer to where that it should be, instead of it being at a very high level, closer to the faculty and staff, but also closer to the student, which is where it should be. So I feel like it's done that. But also, when you think about running an organization, I think it's also created a better sense of accountability. When I think about some of the input that the faculty give, at the end of the day, you can't give input and take no accountability. The fact is, we're holding the deans accountable now. And a good leader who's accountable is also accountable to the people that may be following them. So we feel like we structured it in such a way that the deans have to have that engagement and that connection to the faculty in order for them to be responsible and accountable for what it is. I just want you to know that from a guy who saw it 6 years ago to now, this is day and night in my mind, and it's worked. The system is designed for it to work, and it has. I think the university has done an outstanding job of implementing this. I've read it, I'm in higher ed. I've read enough and seen enough of other places that this is a screwed up mess, that it hasn't had the things. But if you really get a group, and I think Dr. Gavoni's done that, to get a group that embraces this, it can have the success that I think we're actually seeing in the decision-making process and how we manage and share information about the finances of the university. So I just wanted to share that from my perspective of watching this over a 6-year timeline.
As an incoming president, being passionate about a new budget model was not very exciting to most people. And folks asked me if you had it to do over again, would you do it? I would, but I did not realize all the pain we all would endure. And part of the pain was leadership transformation. Part of the pain was having to do a deep dive, and part of the pain was having to be accountable. But I'm proud of what we've accomplished, all of us together as a community. So I think we should take great solace in that, and know that we're one of several handfuls of institutions that are doing this, what I perceive as the right way.
So to go in a different direction slightly, one of the things I looked at in my analysis was we've had a number of units come to us with market equity adjustments, and we have some in our second meeting today. And very much in favor of that, very much in favor of fixing the salaries in the various areas. And as I did my analysis, I went back and looked at those areas, no increases in budget. And so as much as we had taken heat for people getting raises on this campus, the budget in those areas stayed the same over time. But the question, that I have to raise is, when are we going to handle that academic affairs? When are we going to handle the market equity problems that we have, inversion, compression for faculty?
Yeah, I do think that as the BEC looks at the distribution of that 2%, that's got to be part of the conversation. To use some portion of it, that's number one. Number two, deans always have the flexibility within their budget to do adjustments, and that's been true since we started this. The example I use is David Brinkley, who managed to use his budget in such a way. Sorry, David, not to put you on the spot again, but David did it, marketing did it, philanthropy did it, using current dollars and thinking about how could you reimagine how you deploy those staff resources without increasing staff or increasing a budget. How could you distribute the resources that actually rewards performance? And David managed to reconceptualize his entire organization, shift people around, reorient them in directions where they were going to be most successful, and reward them financially. David, I would like for you to, if not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, just talk briefly about that, because I want to remind deans that they have the capacity to do some of this as well. And then Bud is chomping at the bit.
Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, great. That's a fancy
Okay.
background you got there.
Well, it's the Lenox Hotel in Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh,
I'm in a really nice facility for some meetings related to the future of public media up here. But you know, what we did is we looked over a 6-month period at a way that we could reimagine the existing resources and also more closely align and get our spending more in line with where it needed to be. You know, Susan has illustrated the 48% cost for staff and fringe and faculty staff and fringe, and we were at about 63%. Now, while that's okay in the nonprofit world, you know, you can get up higher, up in the 70s, but we wanted to be more around 50%. We also saw the need to evolve positions. This is kind of in line with what Dr. Caboni has said, and I know some of the deans, I know this, they're interested in doing that. And there has to be some level of discretion for them to be able to do that because, you know, it took me in the very beginning of this, Emily England, our finance person, and I, along with our managers, really worked for about 6 months. And the last 3 months of that was pretty painful. But it was comprehensive descriptions, announcements, acknowledgments, and a really complex set of approvals. We finally got approval on the final submission. Thank you, Dr. Caboni, on the third try. But that was appropriate. And I think that when you look at ways to reimagine revenue, and one of the great things about this was, as many of you all know, we have multiple sources of revenue. We're not just driven by one pot, so we can shift ways that we pay people and compensate them and reimagine rewards for them in the future. So I was really happy to do it. I appreciate the support that we got from the university. And I think that the discretion that I was given to be in alignment with our own research, and by that I mean the benchmark institutions that we used similar to us, like Ohio State University, Central Michigan University, you know, public media benchmarks, along as university licensees, was part of being successful as well. So I appreciate the opportunity. I hope that's what you wanted, because that's what I said.
And the other part to that, David talked about the process. Our general counsel's office and our human resources office worked hand in glove with public media to do this, to ensure that everything we did was equitable, that we followed the letter of the law, that we did everything as well as it could be done. And again, the transparency was important.
Can I add one quick thing? I apologize for the addition. It's also important to note that while we tried to get everyone where they needed to be, we still have some adjustments that need to be done. And that's a work in progress. And as we can continue to do that, we will. But it's not perfect. It wasn't perfect the first time, but we'll get there. And again, with the support of HR, the president, our great administrator, you know, university counsel's office, I think we'll be in good shape. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I've done the same thing as David has. I mean, if you look at our office, we have DLO no longer exists, right? We incorporated that to create efficiencies that would allow us to market programs better and to do better dual credit to make sure we were giving them a quality academic experience. And we made the choice a year and a half ago with my staff to not add people. And we made the choice in doing that, we had to reassign a significant number of responsibilities. We did that and it compensated people for those responsibilities that were added. But I will also say, just like David did, are nowhere near the 100%. I mean, if you were to go out and look at our peers, they're sitting about where faculty are, 80, 90, somewhere in there. So it's not really happening. Two is the BEC is going to look at that, Shane. It's a great question. I think it's the question that's been sitting out there forever. And it's the question that nobody wants to take a shot at. And I think at the last BEC meeting, we got people to think about inversion and compression. I think the first one will probably be inversion because it's easier to define and it's easier to know if somebody's in inversion. And I can tell you that we're working on data right now to know who's in inversion and what did it cost to get out of that. That was part of the conversation in that last meeting. They sent HR and myself back to go find data and Susan to figure that out. So we are working on it. It's a great question because we have to get a handle on that. That's really the next important. I mean, we got people who were under the 80% to 80% because they were way underpaid for long periods of time. And now the next one is to try to realign people so it works right. And that's really critical.
And if you think about, if you think about higher education as an industry, this is particularly public higher education. This is a perennial challenge. This is a conversation that I have regularly with my colleagues, both in the Commonwealth and outside, that with inflation where it is, with what that's done to private industry salaries, there's tremendous pressure. Do I wish that we would have a 5% salary pool each year? Yeah, that would be awesome. But again, I have a fiduciary responsibility. When you look at the numbers, that's not possible. It's just not. Do I wish the state would give us permanent money that we could do that? Sure, that'd be great. And we ask for it. We'll ask for it again next year. Do I wish we had another 5,000 students? Sure, but that's not the world we live in, right? And so as much as folks feel like 2% is not enough, given that we've been able to do it for 2 years, it's really relying our peers across the nation, our Commonwealth peers as well. You know, I think we're managing to make good on that promise that it may not be 5%, but we're going to do this regularly, frequently, and we're going to get there. We have choices to make as an institution, but it's tough.
I would stress, I appreciate the commitment you made to do that each year. As someone who's been here for a while, prior to your arrival, there were many years of no raises whatsoever. So this is an improvement. It's just also going back, those people who lived through that era of no raises for a long time are the ones now who historically they're just waiting. So, and it should not be, go without mentioning also the money you put in last year for the healthcare plan was a tremendous help to the faculty and staff as well. So we do appreciate
that's invisible money most times, right? So we haven't talked about that. We haven't had a healthcare increase in 5 years, 6 years,
which is phenomenal.
So, and that's not free. Yeah, so again, I appreciate the concern. I understand the water cooler talk, but the reality is, I believe as a leadership team, we all believe in doing better with compensation, dealing with inversion and compression, and making sure folks feel appreciated, rewarded appropriately, and trying to remain competitive in a marketplace that's close to it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2023-24 operating budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Regent Nichols, second by Regent Spiller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Cole's opposed.
One opposed.
We got it clearly this time, Cole.
All right, second item on our agenda for the budget approval meeting is a report from the nominating committee. And again, Regent Pro.
This request is for the election and approval of the 2023-24 board officers and appointment of treasurer of the board. The following regents served on the nominated committee: Mr. Gary Brody, Chair, Mr. George Nichols III, and Dr. Melissa Dennison. The nominating committee unanimously recommends the following regents to be elected to serve as officers of the board for 2023-24. Mr. W. Curry Milliken, Chair, Ms. Jan West, Vice Chair, Ms. Doris Thomas, Secretary. For the purpose of fulfilling the requirements of KRS 164.330 and the bylaws, the nominating committee recommends that Susan Forward be appointed treasurer for 2023-24. This appointment does not add or alter to the responsibilities of Ms. Horwath in the position or employment at the university and does not include any compensation and may be withdrawn by the board at any time with or without cause. Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2023-24 board slate of elected and appointed officers. Motion by Regent Edison,
Second.
second by Regent Hall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries.
That concludes the agenda items. I would just bring your attention and point out that at the bottom of the agenda are upcoming calendar dates. I know most of you probably already have those on your calendars, but I just want to point that out to you, so you can be sure and be aware of those. Is there any further matter that needs to come before this approval meeting? If not, stand adjourned. In that break, is that sufficient?
So we just sort of hang out. Is that the way this works?
I'm willing to say, I don't know.
I mean, it'd be great to have a conversation, but we're constitute a meeting if we do.
She said the committee meetings start right after. Okay.
Make sure you mute. Absolutely. Thanks.
We're out. Call the meeting to order. Ms. Thomas, would you call the roll again, please?
Continue on.
Ball,
Present.
Regent Brinkley,
Present.
Rowdy,
Present.
Regent Dickinson. Here. Vice Chair Mill,
Present.
Regent Nichols,
Present.
Regent Spiller.
Present.
Regent Thomas, present. Secretary West. Regent Thornfeld,
Present.
Regents present.
That reason, correct.
Representative
Represents quorum, correct. Our first item under Academic Affairs Committee is action item number 1. Mr. Provost,
Yes, sir.
you will present that for us, please, sir.
Yes, sir. It's approval for academic program suspension of the Russian and East European Studies minor. And today we have with us Terrence Brown, Dean, and Senior Associate Dean Merle Price. If you have questions, it was the faculty made the choice to take and suspend this interdisciplinary program. Want to give you just that feedback?
The certificate was on the books and we've not had success in enrollment in the program and an attempt to start to lean out the curriculum to make sure resources are used effectively. Decided this was the next step.
In addition, we have lost an important faculty member who was part of the program. In replacing that position, we're going to go a slightly different direction. And we no longer have the kind of expertise that allows us to offer the program was what it's been said.
Does anyone have any questions or comments concerning this? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the suspension of Russian and Eastern European Studies minor with implementation in the fall of 2023.
So then,
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
second,
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second item is the approval of an undergraduate certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages.
Don't move yet.
It's you all again.
I would say that this is the only undergrad certificate in TESOL that occurs in Kentucky at this point. It's to teach our own students how to be able to teach English to what would be international students, and it's incredibly important for us to be able to do that, and for students to be able to do that.
Yeah, we've taken several steps within our college to not neglect our international population that we continue to see increase within the Commonwealth, but more specifically within Bowling Green and Warren County, such as the GEO school, as we see in South Warren High School. We see a steady influx of those students coming in, and this certificate we think would be a good way to make sure our students are equipped to be able to educate students with different nationalities.
What do we have, about 56 different languages spoken in our undergraduate, in our high schools and grade schools now at this time? And
I actually think it's more than that. It's over 100 now.
Is it? I'm behind, but at least it's a bunch.
How many languages do we teach here?
Right now, we have Russian, Chinese, we're closing out the Arabic program, Spanish, and we also have now reconstituted German with one class for this fall,
and Japanese.
and Japanese,
Russian, Chinese, Spanish.
German
and Japanese.
And then language.
Oh,
and American.
And
what I
did-
And American Sign Language.
I was curious, and I'm looking forward to ask the question. This involves pedagogy. Can you talk about the conversation you had with the College of Education centering this in liberal arts college and the strategy behind that.
Well, this is historic. We've historically had a graduate certificate in
Okay.
TESOL, which has been run through the English department. So this has given the opportunity not only for our students to be able to teach the whole new diversity that's happening in Warren County, but it also gives them multiple opportunities to study abroad, and many of them take advantage of that. As a result, we haven't had a lot of connection with Corinne's College in terms of teaching that, but certainly we're open to that.
Not to contradict you at all, Mara, but actually we have a long partnership between the School of Teacher Education and the Modern Languages programs related to TESOL and adding the language endorsement for our students. Actually, some of our elementary ed programs have that language. English as a second language as part of that program. And so we've been graduating folks and certifying them with that endorsement for a number of years now. And we continue to work with our school district partners on the importance of the secondary language challenges for our learners within the schools. This certificate is great though, because it extends beyond educator licensure and actually goes into the workplace and the workforce. And so as our community continues to welcome families into our region and those families go to work with our partner businesses, those partner businesses will have the opportunity to send some of their employees to us to take this new certificate program to learn how to work with their employees who have English as a second language. So we're excited and very supportive of the extended partnership.
And I spoke of this as occurring through the English department, but of course, one of our TESOL faculty is also the chair of the Modern Languages department. So it's broad in its discipline.
And there's been also some other conversations that we're having on Sunny Yard about some funding to be able to support this.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages with implementation in the fall of 2023. So moved. Have a motion to have a second. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. The third item is an undergraduate certificate in strategies, trauma-informed approaches to improving resilience.
So it's a certificate to provide students with the knowledge and skills to effectively provide services in a way that support resilience in people who have had trauma. And what we would like to talk is bring Dean Bostoff and she's already up to behind the Gail.
So good morning. We'd like to discuss STAIR, as we're calling it. It's an undergraduate certificate really that is going to help in educating individuals on how to work with those who have experienced some sort of trauma. Sorry, for those who have experienced some sort of trauma. And as I think all of us are aware, following the COVID pandemic, of course, the tornadoes that hit here, most of us have experienced some level of trauma, but obviously there are those that have experienced much higher levels. And so Dr. Mallinger brought this to my attention, and we definitely agreed it was a great idea. It was confirmed by Hanover Research that we should move forward with it.
The idea for the certificate really came because we have a course in understanding trauma that was very well attended by students across the university. They were asking for more courses, some similar courses to this. So that's when I approached Dr. Boston about this certificate program. Found for Hanover that there's a tremendous opportunity for our students who will be certified in terms of having that extra piece employed. So it seemed like a good idea. We developed a course on intergenerational trauma. On those two courses in understanding trauma, intergenerational trauma, with our human behavior and social environment course, which is a lifespan development course. And then, so those 3 core courses, we're adding electives across the university. So if a person is a criminology major, he then might be interested in taking a crim course as one of their electives, education, public health, etc. And then there's a capstone course, a 1-credit capstone course for students that develop in German. And so that they have an ability to show that they've integrated the knowledge to.
Questions or comments?
So I would say, I've been on with CPE a few times in the last couple of months, and this has been the types of certificates that are most needed in this state. Any certificate that brings these extra healthcare types of assignments to people who are graduating and they're asking for, as well as certificates that people go back and take and really add on to their career and make their career create a different career trajectory. So this has been really important. And the numbers that are out there are very few of them, and there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So I think it's great.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in strategies for trauma-informed approaches to improving resilience with implementation in the fall of 2023. So have a motion, to have a second? Motion is second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Action item number 4 is the approval of an undergraduate certificate in professional and technical writing.
So I'm excited about this. I think anytime we have students learning how to write, but really writing towards what would be their applied fields is an excellent way for them to move forward into the future. So I will let these guys.
Potter College is here again.
It is.
Very good.
Yeah, this certificate has been in the works for quite a bit. I want to commend Chair Allison Langdon, also Senior Associate Dean Merrill Price, and faculty for being innovative to come up with a certificate. Undergraduate certificates, 15 credit hours, strong focus, and the digital literacy component. Also, this certificate would be a wonderful addition to prepare students to write for purpose in industry. And we think it'll be a great addition to our portfolio.
And is what all industry is asking for out there, is this ability. And I would also say that as you look at higher education certificates like this, they can be within an area, as well as standalones, are really how I think higher education will go in some ways, which is where you have on-ramps and off-ramps where you can get certificates that will help you move forward in your career.
And also this one is stackable.
Yeah,
Stackable. Any questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in professional and technical writing with implementation fall of 2023.
So maybe.
Have a motion, to have a second? Second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. The next is the approval of emeritus status to Dr. Steve Wells.
Yeah, just a little bit about Dr. Wells. He joined WKU as the chair of the Department of Accounting in 2008, where he served for 8 years. Beginning in 2016, he served as the director of the Master of Accounting's program until his retirement in 2022. He was also the person responsible for the accounting jump program that has been successful programs on this campus.
I would also add, he led the accounting ACSB.
That's
presentation. Because I co-wrote that with him. But yes, that was my almost has.
Very good. And I would entertain a motion to approve emeritus status to Dr. Steve Wells.
Some of them.
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. there is an information item.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we've talked about Gilman Scholars before, but I want to talk about them again. I think as we, as an institution and programs get better and we think about applied, and applied means lots of things, not only undergrad research, but internships, job shadowing. One of the other applieds that I think really changes a person's life is the ability to go study abroad. I think students come back more prepared, more mature, and are ready to attack their classes and whatever the future has to hold for them. And one way for a group to do that is they always need money. And Gilman Scholars is a classic way to be able to get money from what would be a national scholarship. And when you look at it, in this last round, we had 48 applicants that work with the Office of Scholar and Development. 42% of them got a scholarship. The average in the country at a university is about 24%. So we're almost double of that. And that's an incredible thing to say. What you should also know is that this is for Pell eligible students, which means these are students that would almost never have an opportunity to do this, now have an opportunity to go study abroad and enrich their lives. And that's really, really important to people. What you also see is that 60% of the scholarships went to students of color and 40% went to underrepresented minority students. Additionally, we had 3 students win extra awards there that are associated with the Gilman. And to give you some context, and it's my favorite because it always makes me smile when I go to bed, is WKU had 20 of them, UK had 3, and U of L had 1. So I feel much better about my life. Me too. And I would say all the kudos go to Lindsay Houshins and Will Randolph, who are the people who are the direct line for these students. They spend significant amounts of time with these students to prepare these applications, and they have certainly figured out what's the secret sauce. And we have been incredibly productive with that. And then you add the fact that we had a Goldwater, one of only 3 in the state this year. I think we're moving in a great direction. And I think it says a lot about the quality of programs, the quality of faculty, and the quality of staff on this campus.
That's a great information item. I love that.
I will say that post-COVID, we are re-ramping up our efforts to help young people think about study away and study abroad. It's important opportunities for our faculty and it's also important for our young people. So this is one way we support that, but also through our international office. So international is not just about recruiting students to go here. Perhaps more importantly, it's about helping our students go abroad. And I want every one of our students to at least consider it. And you know, if we can get to 30% doing it, that's a true feat.
I appreciate the comments because where my question was going to go is post-COVID. My son, when he was here in Arlington, was life-changing for him. Just hoping that we can get everything back to some level of where we were.
So the numbers I have seen coming up are within one standard deviation of what they were pre-COVID. So we're quickly getting back to that range. I mean, it was one of the toughest decisions I ever made here was to tell students that they couldn't go to study abroad because I believe it does change their lives. But when I'm looking at countries that are foreign, it says do not travel. I really don't have a choice in that regard. And, you know, I mean, it's just going to take some time. But I think with Lindsay and Will and that whole GLIA group over there, I think there's a huge upside, and I only expect there to be more and more. I think we'll be way past that soon.
What does GLIA stand for?
Global Learning Affairs, yeah. Sorry.
I just saw a look of confusion on several faces, including mine.
I think all of us who've had a child that has been involved in a study abroad program and have seen the difference that it's made in that child. It's just an amazing turnaround a lot of times as far as their whole approach to life and the world in general.
And the mention of Harlexton reminds me that I want to publicly reiterate our commitment to WKU in England. They are our partners in University of Evanston. Evansville, yeah, I do it every time. University of Evansville. It's a great partnership. The tuition for those who are admitted to Harlexton, the tuition you would pay here covers your tuition there. And with the scholarship. And I'm really proud. And our goal is to have us return to being the #1 partner with them in that wing. Again, we're incredibly challenged during COVID, but rebuilding that, re-articulating our commitment to it is important. And it is an interesting place. I went to see it some year, I'm early in my tenure as president, to see it firsthand. And for a good portion of our students, it is a terrific toe in the water of international travel. It is safe. It is not in a major metropolitan area. It is cloistered in a manner. And so they get the ability to travel abroad, but do it in a way that will feel comfortable, and then learn about England and the region with faculty on every Friday. And it's just a tremendous opportunity for students. Many of our students have not just never left the country, many have not left the region. So glad to have that. I think creating an opportunity for the Regents to see that firsthand would be great too.
Yeah, anything else, Mr. Fisher?
I'm good.
If not, I believe that concludes it. I'm sorry.
Oh, very quickly. I have had the ability to spend a week at Harlexton, and as part of we were doing some promotional video stuff a few years ago, and I can echo what our president is saying. I think that, and I have said this, and I don't know how we do it, but I think study abroad should be compulsory. I cannot think of a better experience for students that do want to put their toe in the water than Harlexton. As a parent of college age students, I think that it is completely safe. It is a wonderful atmosphere, and an atmosphere that really promotes a type of learning that is extremely valuable. So I would echo that, and the commitment to Harlexton, I'm glad to see, is moving forward.
So I would say one more thing about putting your toe in the water. I think there's another program on this campus that's underutilized, and we're going to start pushing it, which is National Student Exchange. You can pay what it costs to come here and go to one of 185 institutions in America and Canada. And I would claim that a student who's never left Kentucky spending a semester in California is in a different country. And I think as you look at this, and we talk about those kinds of things, I think sometimes it's hard to get parents to think about them going across the ocean. But going to California would be that first step to lead to that. And we're going to spend some time in the next year or so getting them there. There's a lot of good institutions on this. I mean, an example would be the politics has just started, right? For the next, it would be great if you're a political science major to go to the University of New Hampshire, because you would get a chance to see everybody come through, and you get a chance to see things you would never see but only read about and hear. So we're going to start working on that too, because I think that's another great way to put your toe into the water.
Very good. We'll move on to the Finance and Budget Committee. Mr. Brody.
First, we have the approval of faculty and staff personnel actions, which have been approved through the administrative channels and executed the Human Resources Information System during the period March 1st, 2023 to April 30th, 2023. And one-time compensation payments executed through the payroll system covering the period March 1st, 2023. Susan.
So Regent Brody, I don't have anything specific to add. These are pretty standard. The only thing is that because of the timing of the last couple of board meetings, We're off as far as a little bit of the timing. So the final 2 months, May and June, will have to come to the August board meeting for approval, because with this meeting being on the 2nd of June, we didn't have time to run the reports. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the faculty and staff personnel actions.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Second item we have is a request to approve the 2023-2024 internal audit work plan. Mr. Bruce Wiseman.
Thank you, Regent Brody. Good morning, everyone. Got some slides to pull up here, but in your packet, you have a proposed internal audit work plan for fiscal year 2024. And I just want to give you a couple of highlights on that item. Under the category of planned projects, we have 5 risk-based projects. Those stemmed from the conversations I shared with you all last board meeting, where I did a risk assessment and talked with 30 leaders across the university, did some surveys to get their perspective of the highest risk items at the university. Additionally, you'll see there's 2 annual projects. One of those is required by the president's contract. The other is required by Kentucky state law, so we have to do those. And then finally, there's 2 management requests. Those came in from leadership and said, hey, can you please come take a look at some of our process and procedures in this particular area? You'll also see on your pie chart, it's on the 2nd page, we have 13% of the office's time budgeted for what I call contingent time. Those are for things that I can't foresee, management can't foresee, things that are just going to pop up. The best example I have for one of those is if a hotline call would come through and require significant time to investigate on our behalf. That's not something we can plan for. I can't put it on the audit plan, but I've got time reserved to do that. If one of those things doesn't happen, we've got backup projects listed on the audit plan. There's 2 of them there. So if we have time available, we'll just jump right in and work on those. At a high level, I'll come back to the pie chart. We've got 63% of our time allocated for projects, another 19% for department management. I'll talk about some of those details of what we're planning to do with that department time in my quarterly update. And then the other 18% is just rather than putting a whole bunch of pie slices up there for you to try and decipher, it's hotline administration, annual risk assessment. They're all listed down below there, but that's what that makes up. So with that said, I'll take any questions you all have about the proposed internal audit work plan for next year.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question about the hotline usage.
Yes.
One of the things that occurs when you promote the hotline is the hotline gets used. And that is a good thing. I want to get a sense of, but sometimes folks use that hotline in ways that are, I don't know, it's not necessarily inappropriate, but in a targeted way to attack people. Sure. Have you seen any of that recently, or have a sense of what those kinds of requests are? Because what I want to make sure is not happening is folks are seeing an opportunity to target those.
Absolutely. That's always a risk of any hotline. There's a limited amount you can do about it. Right. I will tell you, when I spoke at the staff senate on May 3rd, one of the points of discussion was to let people know the hotline existed. The second part was what kind of things should be reported to the hotline, including what sort of things should not be reported to the hotline. Some of that water cooler talk, targeting, that sort of thing. So we do some training to let people know what should and should not be reported. Additionally, we've got, since January, we have 3 hotline cases. Two are done, 1 is in process and is very near completion. But I would say all 3 of those were maybe lower risk items, things that weren't, that wouldn't need to come to the hotline. But again, we welcome those calls. and we can investigate those quickly.
Just so I think we're all familiar, can you talk about what would rise to the hotline level and what might go for change?
I would say anytime you suspect fraud, if people are stealing time or stealing money, inappropriate use of university assets, definitely report those. We can look into those. And then anything that's just unethical, we always say do the right thing, but if there are people doing the wrong thing or you think they're doing the wrong thing, report it. We can investigate the facts and circumstances and adjudicate.
But things that come that would not be, give me some examples.
One of my favorite examples is coworker A was late today. They were 15 minutes late. If coworker A is 15 minutes late every day for many weeks, then we might have something that you want to report to the hotline. But people being late, personnel issues. There are other reporting avenues for discrimination, retaliation, things with EEO. There's a great website. I believe it's WKU/reporting. Don't quote me on that one. You can Google search it, but you can report it through the hotline that I run for ethics complaints. You can, there's a link there for EEO complaints and various other reporting options.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2023-24 internal audit work plan.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There is
Information item.
I've got information on it. Thank you very much. Before I jump into my prepared remarks, with all the talk of Harlexton, I feel like I should let everyone know I'm a Harlexton alumni. I'm a purple ace from the University of Evansville and spent a week at Harlexton and can echo everyone else's comments. So. All right, so this is a quarterly update that I usually give to you all. We're going to talk about projects, the hotline, which we already touched on, some other updates, and then looking ahead. So first, project updates. We haven't done any since the last time we met. However, we've started one with undergraduate admissions. Big thank you to Dr. Ethan Logan and his team. They've been very responsive. I appreciate their effort and cooperation so far. So thank you very much. All right, on the hotline, we touched on that. 3 cases so far this year and basically 3 cases done. No additional information to report on that. Sorry, my clicker's got a delay. We're going to get there. All right, other updates. All right, so some of the big news in my world is we've hired a senior internal auditor. Her name is Caitlin Durham. She's going to start on Monday. She's a WKU alumni. She was here and she majored in finance and economics and then stuck around and got her master's in applied economics. So she's got a great skill set to bring to the internal audit profession. Since that time, she's got 10 years plus of work experience in internal audit, some in banking and some in the retail grocery business. So we're going to be bringing her up to speed on the higher ed industry, but I'm real excited about what Caitlin can bring to our department and to the university. With that, a big thank you to the search and screen committee that helped me through that process. That's just part of the hiring process here, so just wanted to call them out. We've continued our campus awareness. Does this thing work or? We're good. There we go. Campus awareness. We presented at the staff senate meeting on May 3rd. We talked a little bit about what is internal audit, what do we do, what are controls, why are they important. We talked about the hotline. I thought the discussion went fairly well and was an educational experience for all. And I look forward to doing more of those down the road. This last bullet point is one I want to draw your attention to. I just call them consultations. I haven't found a better word for them yet, but I feel like it's pretty good. I define a consultation as someone at the university has reached out to me and said, hey, Bruce, this is what's going on. Can you help us do this? Maybe it's we're putting a new policy together. Can you provide some feedback? We'd love your thoughts on that. Or we want to change a process. Or, hey, we think this is a risk. What do we need to do about it? Since our April meeting, I've had 2 people reach out. Sounds kind of small, but only been here for 5 months, so I'm taking this as a big win that people know I'm here, they know who I am. And most importantly, they're comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, what do you think about these things? This is a key metric that I'm going to track and I'm going to report to you all, just to let you know how the relationship is going between internal audit and the rest of campus. I view this as a very positive sign and look for this number to grow. Consultations aren't big projects. You're never going to see them on the audit plan. They're part of that department management time. I get a call, someone says, hey, let's talk through this, and it might only take 30 minutes of time. We're not going to track a lot of detail, but I want to track how many of those we have. So that's a good thing. All right, looking ahead, another part of that department budget time that I'm going to be spending my time working on next year is there's a lot of letters here, so hang with me to the alphabet soup, but it's a quality assurance and improvement program. And that is a requirement of internal audit functions that's stipulated by the Institute of Internal Auditors and Professional Standards. So if you have an audit function, you should have one of these. That basically, it helps make sure that you are constantly reviewing your own performance as an auditor and saying, are we doing the things we should be doing? Or do we get stakeholder feedback to see that the stakeholders are happy with what we're doing? So we're going to be putting that plan into place. And as part of that QAIP, there is a QAR, a quality assurance review. And that's nothing fancy other than it's an auditor auditing the audit shop. So what I'm targeting is next summer, bringing in an outside group of auditors to audit my department, audit internal audit here at Western Kentucky, to see if we conform with the Institute of Internal Auditors professional standards. So the standards require that happen every 5 years. Our last one happened in 2019. So my math's right. I got till next summer to get that one done. So that's the plan coming up on that. We're going to continue increasing campus awareness. When faculty come back, I'm going to try and get in front of them in the fall. It's on my radar. It's been talking with Regent Spiller about making that happen, so we'll keep working on that. Looking ahead, some more professional development. I think professional development is very important. It helps you stay up to date with what's going on in the world and what's going on in the industry, higher education audit industry specifically. So Caitlin and I, we're going to be headed to the Kentucky College and University Auditors meeting. We're going to network with the other internal auditors from the other schools next week to see what kind of best practices they have, how we can do things better here. And then in the fall, we're planning to attend the Association for College and University Auditors, the ACUA conference. Again, that's just more of a national conference with a bunch of other schools. I've been a member of that organization for 13 years, and I can say it's been the most valuable resource that I've had as an auditor, of being able to network with others, learn from their experiences, learn from their mistakes, and implement best practices here at Western Kentucky. And then finally, team development. Like I said, Caitlin's going to be here on Monday. We're going to spend time training, getting her up to speed, solidifying our processes. So far, it's just been me, so I can kind of do it however I like, but getting up to speed starting next week. And then we're also looking for a student intern. So we've got that posted out on the university's website. It's Handshake. If you know anybody that would be a good fit, please send them our way. They don't have to be an accounting major. They don't have to be a business major. If you're a good thinker and or you're good with data, you can find data, you can look at data, whatever it might be. I want to talk to you. Might be a good fit for our team. So that's my quarterly update for you all. I'll take any questions you may have. Okay, thanks. Good. Thank you all.
Next item on the agenda is the Student Affairs Committee. Regent Thomas.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We have one information item under Student Affairs, and I'm going to ask Dr. Blank.
Thank you, Regent Thomas.
I have for you guys today, information item regarding career services here at Western Kentucky University. And to talk about that today, I have Chris Jensen, our Assistant Vice President for Student Success, and Wayne Simpson, who oversees the Career Development Program, to give you information presentation today. And what I like best about this program is the fact that we have it integrated in our ACDC component of the Student Success Program, which is not only my favorite acronym in terms of our programs, but the Advising and Career Development Center goes hand in hand. So advising students towards degree in their academic program and promotion, and being able to have those conversations in the same office, and contain the same area is really a nice combination. It elevates the platform. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to introduce this conversation and Wayne.
Thank you, Dr. Logan, and thank you, Regent Thomas. So Wayne has been with us, I guess it seems like a long time since we're 5 months. We're at 7 months with Wayne. When he started, we had a discussion of where we wanted to see career development go. We really focused a lot on the advising piece within our office, but we know this is a very important part and what our students are hoping to achieve when they end up getting that degree at WKU. So Wayne is going to talk a little bit about what he and his team have been working on the last couple of months, but we've seen a large uptick in the number of students utilizing our services. And we've also started partnering a lot more with the community, knowing that there's a lot of industry coming in here and there's a lot of opportunity for us as an institution. Wayne?
Good morning. Okay, first off, my team, we focusing on department. And so we want to make sure that everything that we do aligns with WKU's strategic plan. And I have a quote that I always tell my team, that everything we do is all about the students. And so when you think about that, you're going to be very well blessed. And so first off, we want to connect students with our local and regional employers. We want to make sure that our employers feel wanted, they feel involved, and they feel engaged. And by doing so, our students will learn not only about the industries, but also about the recruitment process. And secondly, we want to make sure that our students are well versed in the soft skills that are needed to get jobs. The top 3 soft skills are teamwork, problem solving, and thinking analytically. And so that's the main focus of our department. And then also, we want to make sure that our faculty members are engaged with all of our efforts. So I got this slide right here from NACE, which stands for the National Association of College and Employers. And it shows what employers are saying they want for our new college graduates. And if you can look at the top, I'll read that because the letters are small. It says this is on a scale from 0 to 5. 5 being the best, and obviously 0 being the worst. But employers want students who have completed an internship within their organization. And then secondly, have internship experience in that industry. So that's one thing that we're really pushing, that our students are really seeking out internships. And we are speaking to employers to, if they have internship needs, to come on our campus and meet with our students. And so in the fall, we had EnvisionCon, and we have these things called employer spotlights. Prior to my coming to WKU, the employer spotlights were held during the day, and we changed that time for it to be in the evening, starting at 6:30. Dean Brown was present during this time. Envision, as you all know, has over 2,000 vacancies, and we want to fill as many of those vacancies with WKU graduates. So we had 32 students show up, and one thing I tell employers, if you want students to come out, sometimes you have to incentivize them. And so they purchased some snacks. It might have been a weird combination. It was lemonade, donuts, and cookies. But apparently it worked because we had 32 students show up that evening. So we want to continue inviting our employers to come out and do these spotlights. Moving forward with internships. We had National Corvette Museum. They had 12 paid internships. And what was unique about this employer, the 12 internships really fell under 4 out of our 5 colleges. And so we had 110 plus students come out. And how we did this event, it was broken up into 3 different sessions. We had 10 to 12, 1 to 2, and then 6 to 8 in the afternoon, so we can incorporate our graduate students and those that might have been going to class during today. 73 students were interviewed on the spot. And currently we have 8 of those positions filled. Talking with our communication and marketing departments, they are going to do a piece in the fall where they're going to follow all of our students and they're going to ask them how it's going. And this program is going to be done yearly. So MCM will be coming back on a yearly basis to fill those internships with our college. Last event, we have the first gen. And so with this event right here, we want to make sure that our first gen students were prepared for career success. And so I was the speaker. We had members of our faculty and staff to coach them on interviewing, resume prep, and all those things. And we had BG Shakery provide ice cream for our faculty and staff and students. The only negative that I have about this event, after the students and faculty and staff were served, all the ice cream was gone, and I didn't get the ice cream. I planned the event and I made sure that the strawberry cheesecake was on the menu and I didn't get it, but I'll make sure I get it next time. But this is a great event that we're planning on doing well. Moving forward, so some future projects, we would like to establish an employee advisory council. It's good that students can hear from us, but if they have industry leaders that tell them, this is how you dress for an interview. These are the things that you should say in the interview. This is how you network. It'll impact students more. And within that employee advisory council, that's going to be comprised of WKU faculty, staff, and community partners. It is my goal in the next 5 years to have ACDC to be ecosystem. Faculty, staff, alumni, employers are all here to really prepare our students to the best possible outcome. And then finally, we would like to create a clothing closet. To my knowledge right now, going forward, business college, I believe is the only one that has a clothing closet. That's for business students, and that's beautiful. But we would like to have one where we're able to supply clothes for all of our students, for all of our job fairs. This past spring, we had 5 job fairs. And for the whole academic school year, we serviced over 1,100 students for all of our job fairs. And so a lot of times students, they may say, I really want to go to the job fair, I don't have a suit, or I don't have a tie, appropriate clothing. And so this is why I would like to establish this for those students that come in. We can get some clothes right there on the slide.
Should be noted when he said 1,100 students, that's prior to pre-pandemic levels. So we're seeing a great increase in our students utilizing those services, wanting to get out into the community and get jobs. We are in talks now with Holly Automotive and other local industry to be doing more employer spotlights, bringing them on campus. We've been working with the chamber. And then another part that he didn't highlight and has been a partnership across the university is we have a new career service, self-service part for students called Stepping Blocks. This will allow our students to end up doing a personality assessment, then see what careers might be a good fit for them. And the greatest part of this is that it links to our alum. So we can see what student or where our alum went with that major, what they're doing in the industry now, salary, and it's going to give them a lot of different options. And it's going to also help out the academic programs. I know they're using it for program review, and our alumni is using it for philanthropy reasons and outreach. So there's a lot of opportunity going forward. Wayne has done an amazing job of getting connected with the campus community, but also the local community. He's been invited to almost every high school, I think, already. And they're trying to get him to come out again to do presentations about being prepared for college and college readiness. So he's really integrated quite well, and I'm pleased with him and his team on what they're doing to assist our students.
You've primarily just been local and Warren County, or have you gone that up?
It's been both.
Are you gonna go?
Yes, I actually had a meeting with our satellite campuses, and so starting in the fall, what we're planning on doing, hosting a Zoom event for all of our regional campuses, and so we can make sure that those students are as well.
In our job fairs, we have employers coming from all over the country. A lot of it is within the region, but we're seeing people come from long distances to end up working and trying to recruit our students.
I think Cole had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Chris and Wayne, and commend you all for your work with this. I myself had the opportunity to sit down with Brian and work on my resume earlier in the year. So just thank you guys for your strong work and all that you do for the students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, great project.
I move that the board go into closed session as provided in KRS 61. Section 1. For the following discussion of proposed or pending litigation against or on behalf of the university.
Motion second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.